We're good. Jason? Okay. Good morning. Call to order the October 4th, 2022 meeting of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome back former Planning Director and Community Development Director Stan Bowling. He's now with Grace Spring Covenant Church, and he will be providing the invocation this morning. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Dylan Reingold, the County Attorney. And we will begin this meeting with a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces. Would everyone please rise?
Lord God, we come to you this morning. A lot of things on our minds and hearts, even more so really today. We think of the people who are suffering from the impacts of storms, people in Puerto Rico, here in Florida on our west coast and in central Florida and in the Carolinas. So we first of all just ask you to strengthen the hearts and the minds and the bodies of leaders who are making decisions and the men and women on the ground who are rescuing, transporting, they're treating, they're feeding, they're sheltering, restoring, counseling, rebuilding, all of that, Lord. We ask for you to strengthen them. And so we look to you, we look at your word, and we see in Psalms, you say, the Lord is near all who cry out to him. The Lord supports all who fall and lifts up all who are bent over. And we remember that we are your hands and your feet. And again, your word says in 1 Peter, each of you has been blessed with one of God's many wonderful gifts to be used in the service of others. So use your gift well. So, Lord, we give you thanks for life. Thanks for what you've given us. And we ask for the grace and the intentionality to use it well. We remember what you say in Matthew 7. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the flood came, and the wind beat against that house, but it did not collapse because it had been founded on rock. Lord, we know there are all kinds of storms in life. Everyone, everywhere experiences them. And so we just recognize this morning that we need you, that we need others, and that others need us. So we look to you to receive from your hand, to take in your words, and to respond in your strength and with your love. So we say yes to you today. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Pleasure and to get to follow Stan Bowling in his words, and so please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stan, thank you, and good to see you again.
Show up today.
Commissioners, we have two additions to the agenda. One is item 11A, which is an update from the county administrator regarding status of Hurricane Ian, and then also addition of 13C. The county attorney would like to provide an update on the federal litigation between the town of Indian River Shores and City of Vero Beach. And I would like to advance item 15A1, which is the Emergency Services District, to follow the consent agenda. Are there any other additions, deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to delete my item for today, 14B1, and I'll bring it back at a later date.
Okay, we're going to delete 14B1. Thank you. Commissioners, any other changes to the agenda?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Moss, second by Commissioner Adams, to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Moving to proclamations and presentations. First, we have a presentation or proclamation in recognition of Fire Prevention Week 2022. And to no surprise, Vice Chair Joe Ehrman is going to make this presentation.
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair Ehrman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody come on up. All right, well, thanks for being here, and I want to recognize everybody. There's Director of Emergency Services back there, Dave Johnson, our Fire Prevention Bureau Chief, Rich Marini, Inspector Bob Burns, Vanessa Brooks, Jennifer McKinnon, Alex Norette, and I don't see Hobbs.
He's off today.
So Hobbs, but that's everybody here, and that's a good group. Boy, I tell you what, it's more people than we ever had, and it's very fitting, but it shows the growth of the county and how important that fire prevention is throughout our community. But read this proclamation, and then hopefully we'll get y'all to say a few words. Proclamation in recognition of Fire Prevention Week 2022, October 9th through the 15th, 2022. Whereas Indian River County Board of County Commissioners is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Indian River County. Fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest where people are at greatest risk from fire. Home fires killed more than 3,500 people in the United States in 2020, and according to the National Fire Protection Association, the fire departments in the United States responded to 490,500 home fires. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of a fire in which you may have had as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. Working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported homes and fires in half. And whereas Indian River County residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and Indian River County's residents should make sure their smoke alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas Indian River County first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home injuries through fire prevention and protection education, and residents that are responsive to public education measures are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme is Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape Effectively, serves to remind residents of Indian River County is it important to have home fire escape plan. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board does hereby proclaim October 9th through the 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the state, and we urge all the people of Indian River County to plan and practice a home fire escape for Fire Prevention Week 2022, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Indian River County Fire and Rescue Services, adopted this 4th day of October 2022 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Thanks for everything y'all do.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. This year marks the 100th anniversary of Fire Prevention Week. As you know, homes today burn faster than they did in the past. Sometimes you'll have as little as 2 minutes to get out of your home once the smoke alarm goes off. So having an escape plan in your house is very important, and have a working smoke detector in your house. And I'm proud to announce that we have partnered with American Red Cross, and we actually go out and install smoke detectors in homes that need them in our community. It's been a great program for the last few years, and we're continuing with that program to make it a safer community. I want to thank you guys for this proclamation on behalf of Director Johnson, Fire Chief Rattray, myself, my staff, and thank you again for helping us make our community a safer place to live. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Hey, good to see you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, good job, gang. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing the week of October 2nd through 8th, 2022 as National 4-H Week, and Commissioner Adams will be making this presentation.
Fantastic. It's my pleasure. Ladies, you want to come on up? As they're coming up, I just want to say, I've been in 4-H. I started in 4-H when I was in elementary school, actually in the sewing club. So 4-H is much more than just animals. They do so many different things and have so many different programs available. I graduated onto the animals and showing in the fair and that kind of thing. And now my son's in 4-H, and it's a wonderful, wonderful organization that has so many resources for the kids. So it really is my pleasure to read the proclamation recognizing the week of October 2nd through 8th, 2022 as National 4-H Week. Whereas 4-H is America's largest youth development organization, having supported almost 6 million youth across the country thus far. And whereas 4-H has helped 1,300 youth in Indian River County to become competent, independent, resilient, and compassionate leaders. And whereas 4-H is delivered by Cooperative Extension, a community of more than 100 public universities across the nation that provides experiences where young people learn by doing in hands-on projects in areas including health, science, agriculture, and citizenship. And whereas National 4-H Week showcases the incredible experiences that 4-H offers young people and highlights the remarkable 4-H youth in Indian River County who work each day to make a positive impact on those around them. And whereas 4-H's network of 600,000 volunteers and 3,500 professionals provides caring and supportive mentoring to all 4-Hers, helping them to grow into true leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board hereby recognizes October 2nd through 8th, 2022, as National 4-H Week throughout Indian River County, and encourages all of our citizens to recognize 4-H for the significant impact it has made and continues to make by empowering youth with the skills they need to lead for a lifetime. Adopted this 4th day of October 2022 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. And ladies, I know you have a lot going on right now with 4-H, just the different clubs, and we have our new extension agent. Welcome. But if you'd like to say a few words about how you're celebrating, I know there was a contest out there that's going on, and you have a few other things, so tell us about it.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kayla McCarty, and I am the Indian River County 4-H agent. We are privileged to speak to you today on behalf of UF-IFAS, Indian River County Extension, and 4-H. We greatly appreciate your support for our programs. This week we celebrate National 4-H Week, and we like to take the time to appreciate those who help fulfill our motto, which is to make the best better. Today we do have Lindsay Dillahay, who is a 4-H member here in Indian River County, and she will be sharing some of her experiences in the 4-H program. And also tomorrow, wear green to support our 4-H National 4-H Week.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Dillahay, and I'm 16 years old, and this is my 8th year in 4-H. I'm currently the president of 4-H Horse Masters for the 3rd year, and I can't imagine myself doing anything differently. Recently, at a horse show, the father of one of our new club members asked me what I found most valuable about 4-H and what it teaches us. And I had to take a step back and look at my time in 4-H and kind of pinpoint the monumental moments that changed who I am today. I told him 4-H had taught me most about leadership and maturity, as well as giving me and some of my peers all these amazing opportunities. I explained to him that growing up, I was always the student to take charge of a group project. I played all the roles, artist, writer, researcher, and everyone congratulated me for being such a great team leader. When people needed help, they looked to me. And while this is a great feeling, it's not a true leader. I really wasn't doing much. Sure, I learned how to be versatile and manage my time, but I wasn't being an active leader. By joining 4-H, becoming part of the government, and being an active member, I learned much more about being a leader. I was taught how to delegate responsibilities based on the strengths I recognized in my peers. I learned how to lift up teammates after they did poorly at a horse judging competition. 4-H truly helped me work with others without any feeling of superiority, as we were all just a group working towards one decided goal. Following, I told them about the maturity I'd gained from 4-H. It wasn't like I was forced to act like an adult, but I was taught to recognize the specific time and place. For example, a few years back, I attended Camp Cloverleaf. Here, I was put in a cabin with 6 other girls, and it was quite a fun week. We played games, competed in challenges, danced, and swam. We also learned about team building, listening, and respect. While it's completely appropriate to be belting out a song with your friends at one of the dances, it's also important to note there's a different level of behavior expected at a formal meeting. I think this trait gained from 4-H played a major role in who I am today, as I work in a private barn with equestrian professionals double my age. I was one of many candidates, but I stuck out to them due to my maturity and dedication that was shown in my interview. Finally, 4-H opens so many doors and gives its members countless opportunities. It is through 4-H that I was able to tour a major thoroughbred rehabilitation center in Kentucky. I was able to compete at the state, regional, and national levels on multiple occasions, and even learn how to cook a good pork chop at horsemanship school. 4-H has given me countless friendships and experiences I will forever look fondly back on. When at competitions, my team would all bring fun pajamas and sit together and study. We would make funny names for plants on flashcards so we could remember them easier, and we'd even make studying into games, like who could name all the parts on a horse the fastest. Building these bonds that will last a lifetime is so important and strengthens our community greatly. In early November, I'll be flying out to Louisville, Kentucky for a public speaking competition at the national level. I will spend 4 days there competing and exploring and meeting other 4-H members across the country. In my previous visit to Kentucky for the horse judging competition, I was able to learn so many new things and explore some new career paths. So a big thank you to all of you, as well as my club, county, and the great state of Florida for its financial and moral support. Thank you.
Well, I just have to say, if I'm sure it's due to the 4-H, that's probably the very best presentation by a 16-year-old I've ever seen on the podium. So congratulations to you. Very well done, very nice.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to comment the same. Throughout the years, we've had the opportunity, I know if you can hear my voice, I thought 4-H was about cows and plants. And I've learned that it's so much more about character building. We've had the opportunity to be judges for the public speaking event, the annual event, and I'm excited to know that it may be expanded to the 6th grade level as well, because it's a great opportunity, the most enjoyable opportunity to see the young minds get so agitated and motivated to be able to speak in a very profound manner, which is not customary in today's environment. And you have done that just now. So you didn't have to mention that you were going out to the national competition. It sounded like you were going there. So I want to thank you for that as well, and thank you for the education and opportunity to even expand our minds of what 4-H truly is. It's an incredible organization, and I want to thank you for your participation. And ditto, you spiked it. 16 years old. Thank you.
Awesome. We love 4-H, so congratulations and good luck to you.
And, just add, Commissioner Adams, in about 12 years, her seat may become open. So that's always a great next step for leadership. A lot of public speaking. So keep that in mind. We would need and certainly welcome young people like you to step up to a leadership role like that. So keep it in the back of your mind. All right, well, come on up.
Wow. Great job. Thank you. Thank you.
See you.
I know this meeting wasn't as fun as the last one.
You brought your own photographer, too?
I can only do that once a year.
We should have had some green confetti.
We should have.
Rich might have some extra. I'm next after her, so you guys gotta hold it together. One more.
Yep, everybody hold it.
4-H Press. Once again, give him another one. Thank you.
Well, very impressive and very uplifting, I thought. There's no minutes to approve, Commissioner, so we move to informational items. Commissioner Flesher, I see you're appointing former Sebastian Police Chief Michelle Morris to the Children Services Advisory Committee. That's a wise choice.
Yes, I was pleased to know that she would accept that appointment, and the former police chief is excited and ready to go and move forward for Children's Services.
I've worked with Chief Morris on a couple committees, and she is truly dedicated to the kids and the community. So
Yes.
very great choice.
Thank you.
The next item, I think Mike Zito, the Assistant County Administrator, is going to talk about this for a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. Yeah, on October 15th, we're having the inaugural O'Brien Open. And that's a challenge that Commissioner O'Brien laid down to the fellow commissioners and staff to join and learn the great game of disc golf as we expand our passive and active recreational opportunities here in the county. We've now added disc golf. It's a course that's designed and installed by our Parks Maintenance Division with all donated equipment, and we encourage everyone to come out. And what I'm hearing a lot from the employees is, I don't know how to play disc golf. Well, join the club, because that's what this is all about. It's about, trying, get out of your comfort zone and come out and enjoy great weather on a nice morning at Hobart Park. And we'll supply all of the equipment, instructions, and it's just a fun day, and we'll all be better disc golfers at the end of it. Jason stepped up and has agreed to join my team, so I can tell you our score will not be impressive. So please put something together or reach out to us, and we'll connect you with someone that wants to play as well. Looking forward to it, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I was
Commissioner Adams.
just going to say, I don't think that not knowing how to do something has ever stopped us from doing it. So
We do it every
don't be
week.
afraid. I know, right? Every Tuesday we, but everybody come on and play.
I think high score wins, right?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, but you don't have to bring anything at all. You just show up and enjoy the moment and the celebration.
Fabulous.
In-
October's an active month of events, but try to fit it in if you can.
And first, I'd like to thank Mike and Recreation Director Beth Powell for the honor of naming this after me. I'm very humbled and honored to be recognized by that, and always have loved supporting our rec department and all the things they do. I think they do an awesome job, and we offer a lot of things. So I have already registered as Team O'Brien, and I'm trying to get my wife Susan to join, but we're having trouble getting liability insurance for her in case there's an errant throw.
We might need it for you.
She did volunteer to drive the beer cart if we're allowed to have one. I don't know what the rules are there. But yeah, this should be a lot of fun, and yeah, you don't have to be good at disc golf. It's all about just being out there and supporting the rec department and having fun Saturday morning. And I'll take this time, because I do see town Indian River Shores Councilmember Bob Atwater in the audience. And Bob, I'd like to challenge the town to put a team together for the Disc Golf Open. So throwing that out there to you. And just anybody else, it's free. There's no charge. There'll be morning beverages and gifts and prizes and all that good stuff. So hope everybody comes out, has a great time, and looking forward to it. We'll be there on the 15th.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Commissioners, that takes us to the consent agenda. Is there anything you'd like to pull for additional discussion?
Mr. Chair, 8G. I'd like to pull.
Okay, item 8G is pulled by Commissioner Moss. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to have a consent agenda item pulled for additional discussion? Okay, seeing none, Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, move approval as amended.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Commissioner Moss, Item 8G.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this item has to do with mineral rights for a property that was sold back in 1989, currently owned by Ocean Spray Cranberries, Inc., and we are considering releasing the rights or interest, any phosphate, metal, mineral, and petroleum interest on that property. So I would just like to know more about that matter.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner. Susan Pardo, Assistant County Attorney. So I was reached out to by the Council for Ocean Sprays. They are currently selling the property, and they simply reached out and asked that if we would be willing to have it released, as this is something that we retain per Florida statute under 270.11 automatically. So it's not something that we went out, made a document to actually go ahead and retain. It's only a 30-foot strip off of the entire parcel that they are selling. So it's not like we encumber their entire parcel. But that's all we have is simply a request. Staff doesn't have any particular recommendation. I did send out an email to the different department heads and asked and inquired if there was any sort of interest or particular interest in this property. I received back several, no, they didn't really have any particular interest in this property. And so I went ahead and set it on the agenda, and here we are today.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying, and I will move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Moss, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes 5-0. We'll now take on item 15A1. This is the Emergency Service District. And Chief, you still here? Okay.
Good morning, Dave Johnson, Emergency Services Director.
And this is just an agreement with the State Agency for Healthcare Administration, and we have to put some upfront money, and then we get reimbursed, and then additional money's back from that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We do this every year. It's a common thing throughout the state for every agency who does transports of emergency patients. We use this money for, we purchase rescue units, equipment, various other things we use through the ALS and EMS system we have.
Okay. Chief, I have to admit, under consent, we approved the renewal of your Class A certificate, and I kind of find it funny we have to approve ourselves to provide those services, so it's kind of, I just found it a little ironic.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for the chief on 15A1?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Chief. No constitutional officers items, no public hearing or public discussion. We do have one public notice item. Mr. Reingold, would you do the honors, please?
Thank you very much. We have a notice of a scheduled public hearing which will be held on October 11th, 2022. This is for the Glendale Baptist Church School Modified Conceptual Site Plan and Special Exception Use. Again, this will be a public hearing which will be held on October 11th. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Public Works, 12G1, an FDOT supplemental. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We added 11A. I'm sorry, Jason. We have 11A, an update on Hurricane Ian.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Just wanted to provide a brief update on Hurricane Ian. As we all know, we were impacted by Hurricane Ian last week, as a large portion of Florida was. Of course, we were very fortunate not to experience that which was experienced on the southwest coast of Florida. Our hearts go out to those folks, and so we have to consider ourselves fortunate in everything. First of all, I want to say I think Director Johnson, Ryan Lloyd, who's head of our emergency management, and the entire emergency management crew did a great job responding and preparing for this event. I also want to thank our partners. We work closely with the municipalities, law enforcement, the sheriff's office, the school board, health department, various other partner agencies to make sure all of this stuff comes to fruition. We did end up opening some shelters, special needs, a pet-friendly, and a general population shelter. Had about 100 people in attendance at all of those shelters. A lot of work goes into that, and a lot of coordination with our partners, and being able to get the schools back turned over so they can get back into school as quickly as possible. We had a great team on our emergency management. We had a mix of experience and some new folks, and this is the way these things go. You know, if you go back in our history, we had about in 1980 we had Hurricane David. Then 2004 we had Francis and Jean and those storms, and we had a gap, and we had some close hits in 2016 and 2017. So it seems like every time there's a gap and you've got new people, and they have to learn some things as you go. So I think our folks did a great job of that with the mix of the team we had, and this was, fortunately, we didn't get any worse than we did, and it was a great exercise and training for everybody that we can put into place for that next event, which we hope doesn't happen for some time. I do want to say that, so some of the big issues, we had a heavy amount of rain early on. Fortunately, that dried up on the back half of the storm. Had some early drainage challenges, but our public works folks did a great job, and some of the drainage improvements that we've been working on over the last few years, I think, have paid off there. Had power loss, about 40,000 of FPL's 100,000 customers were affected by the storm. They did restore essentially full restoration by Sunday, so that is a good thing. One of the issues that we have going on is beaches. So one of the things that happened with this storm, as happens with many storms, a lot of times we think of a storm coming from the east having a big storm surge and heavy beach erosion. That can also happen with storms coming from the west that come across, and we had some significant beach erosion as it came through, and then that erosion continued and worsened over the weekend after Ian emerged offshore and was headed up towards South Carolina. We experienced a significant amount of erosion. So that has impacted our beaches. Our facilities elsewhere are all completely open. However, we do have some challenges at our beachfront parks. Right now we have Round Island, Treasure Shores, and Golden Sands are open, and the other 5 are currently closed. We're working, our Parks and Rec, and Mike Zito is working very, very hard to try to get those open. If we could go through, Kim, if you could just cycle through these, keep on going, just to show some of the pictures. We got some before and after pictures. Keep going. Yep. So you can see some places we had fairly moderate Amber Sands Beach there. So you can see an escarpment there a little bit. And what happens, keep going to the next one. So what happens is you have these escarpments, and they can be dangerous for people to traverse. This one's fairly small, but we do have some where they are 6-foot escarpments that become a hazard for people to traverse up and down. And then you also have the situation where people put their beach blanket up next to, this is a good one, like at Wabasso. We're looking at Wabasso Beach here, and those dunes can become destabilized, and they've fallen on people and can result in serious injury or even death in cases. So those are the things that we're trying to do. We also have to be mindful. We can only do limited work in these areas as it is sea turtle season, so there's a whole protocol that we have to go through in order to be able to do restoration work. Everything has to be done in accordance with Fish and Wildlife. You can see a pretty large escarpment there on the right side, where we can't have people being led down to the beach and not have a way to get back up. There are some cases where you can have at high tide, where people can kind of be trapped up against that. So here we have some examples of where the crossovers are working here, but some of them we have a place where there's not a step down to the beach from our dune crossovers. So we're going to work to try to get those. Here's an example. If you look at this picture on the right-hand side, it looks deceiving that there's stairs going down there. That is actually the set of stairs from the lifeguard tower. So the lifeguard tower has stairs down there, but there should be another set of stairs coming out of this area on the right for the public to access the beach. That was washed away by the storm. So we've got to get that restored before we can reopen those beaches. So needless to say, we are working to try to get as many of these open as possible. Obviously, our beaches are very important to our community, to our visitors, and people like to go visit the beach, especially when we're having the wonderful weather that we're having. So here, if you look at that middle picture, go back, Kim. If you look at that middle picture, these are the types of conditions that you have sometimes where you can't get access. Now, I will say, since then, yesterday, in that particular area at Porpoise Point, the sand has come back in. So sometimes the sand loss that it appears we've experienced, that sand is out there in the system, and some of it will come back on shore. Now, when you lose the dune, that doesn't come back. But we are working to try to get those beaches open as quickly as possible. We did meet with FEMA representatives over the weekend about getting an eligibility determination for it, at a minimum emergency dune restoration, and talking to them about further beach restoration eligibility if there is continued loss, which we will have to measure going forward. So that's where we are on beaches. The other item, the large item that we are still dealing with, is debris. This storm had carried sustained winds of up to 40 miles per hour in our area, with gusts of up to 66 miles per hour. There is a fairly significant amount of debris out there. It's not even across the community. It's not even. You can go down one street and see there's not a whole lot, and then go down another street and see that there's a significant amount of debris. The debris that's out there is significant, but it's significantly less than in prior events where we've activated a special debris pickup. At this time, staff is not recommending an additional debris pickup. We're directing residents to take their yard waste to the 5 customer convenience centers or the landfill, which are all open. There's been heavy lines at times. However, the operation is going well. And if you are in the unincorporated area and you are a subscription customer of Waste Management, you can put your waste out by the side in accordance with the franchise agreement in no greater than 4 cubic yard segments, and not greater than 3-inch branches. And we're working through that process. We ask residents to pack their patience. Obviously, some folks are putting out more than 4 cubic yards. I see Deb Perez in the back there. We're asking Waste Management to pick up the 4 cubic yards and leave the rest, and maybe catch that later. We have issued an emergency PO to bring in a couple of extra clam trucks to augment the 2 clam trucks that the county Public Works has to try to clear stuff from the public rights of way. And I will say that while we have been declared eligible for emergency measures from FEMA, we have not been declared eligible for debris clearing. If we were to do something more, then those costs are likely going to be borne by us. There were 17 counties that were declared, and I believe the minimum threshold to be considered for that is $655,000. I don't think we're at that. Don't think we end up getting reimbursed. I will say we have, at the beginning of this, put our debris hauler and debris monitor on notice, and we can pull the trigger on them. They've told us they can provide a response. I will say I'm concerned about, even if we were to do that, the robustness of the response. A lot of those contractors are going to go further west where there's just more need. But that's where we sit today on debris. And I would welcome any discussion and guidance. We have had people call and ask if we're going to do something. At this time, we have not decided to do that. And this is, what a technical term here is a tweener, as far as what the event is. Do we have a special debris collection, or do we just continue on with the regular process? Either way, it's going to take a little bit of time to get all of the debris cleared up, as it does whenever one of these events fails. But again, I'd like to get some direction on that issue, but just in closing on the storm, did a great job, staff, I think did a great job through this. I think it was also a good lesson for us in what can happen with a tropical event. should this have come over our way, we'd be dealing with a whole lot worse than we have, and a good lesson for our staff and our residents to make sure that we take all of these things seriously and don't trust the spaghetti models too much, because just a few days before it came in, it was supposed to go into the Panhandle, and just know that if you're in a place where you could be impacted by a storm, it's never good to let your guard down. So I think that's a lesson for all of us from this storm.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Jason? Commissioner Fleischer?
Yes, and thank you, Jason. We did have quite a bit of calls about debris and vegetative waste. Agreed that it's not quite as much, and anyone that does have waste pickup through Waste Management will also have once a week pickup, albeit it will be limited. It may take a few sweeps before it's completely done, but I don't believe that we have the abundance necessary to trip the trigger as well. I agree with staff. But one of the things that is happening is people with commercial vehicles that want to bring foliage to the landfill are charged a tipping fee. And I think that in the spirit of expediting it at a lower cost. One of the higher cost factors when someone is doing it for someone else, or if they happen to have a commercial vehicle and they are bringing their own, they're charged that $75 impact. And I was wondering if we could, in this spirit, waive that for 1 month, so that this way people would be more compelled to move that vegetative waste where it needs to be. I think that's a bit of a hybrid as opposed to tripping a $500,000 contract that could not be reimbursed by FEMA or any other source. And I don't believe we have that abundance of vegetative waste, but I believe it would be most appropriate to do that as one commissioner, to consider waiving the fees for 1 month.
Yeah, we could definitely do that if the board so directs. We would lose some revenue in that, but it would be likely less than the cost of bringing in an outside debris hauler, and that could encourage more people to bring their waste to the landfill, because we don't have a charge for smaller items, but if you exceed that 3-inch size, there is a charge. And I will say we're going to have a larger expense anyway, because we pay our veg waste processor based on the cubic yard, and we're just going to have a larger expense there for solid waste anyway, regardless, because we do have to take this stuff in. But we could do that if the board so directs, to waive those fees for a time period.
Well, I'd like to give it a shot and make that motion to move in that direction. If there is any interest. And that would include the landfill and the convenience centers as well.
There is no charge at the convenience centers. So I think the rule of the convenience center, and I'll maybe ask Himanshu to come down on this, we would still want residents to follow the requirements at the convenience centers to not have large trunks in there, because I think that could create a challenge for the operation with Republic. But I'll turn it over to Himanshu.
Good morning, Commissioners. Himanshu Mehta, Managing Director of Solid Waste Disposal District. So Jason's correct. I mean, we general policy has been is small,
Right.
less than 3 inches diameter at the convenience centers. Folks have been bringing it in. We're not really policing it, if you will. I mean, we've opened up areas at each of the convenience centers adjacent to containers to be able to have residents get in and get out. But we've seen a lot of lines. I haven't looked at the material firsthand to see if there's 100% compliance. I'm sure there's some large materials in there, but we're not policing it 100%. At the landfill, that's where we would like the bigger stuff. It's just more better to have it directly brought to the landfill. In terms of, I support Jason and the will of the commission in terms of the fees. One of the things we implemented yesterday was for small vehicles. We sort of came up with an average ton for small vehicles. And as of yesterday, we started bypassing smaller vehicles on the scale house to allow them, we're just going to use average tons, like 1.3 tons or something like that. And we're counting the number of pickup trucks that are going back at the landfill. And that way we can settle up, because there is a cost per ton, if you will, for Atlas Organics. So it's not so much sort of, refraining from our revenues. We do have a cost per ton to our contractor. So we need to quantify how much we're sending them. So we're able to do that for the small vehicles. If we waive the fees, in terms of trying to expedite the process, I feel like we still need to quantify what the residents are bringing in or the big commercial vehicles are bringing in. So there may still be a process where we still need to weigh them in and weigh them out. We can, if the will of the board is to waive the fees, we can do that for the larger commercial vehicles. However, we need to pay our contractor. So in order to do that, we still need some tonnages. So we've been able to waive the smaller vehicles to get them in and out faster by coming up with an average ton, counting the number of pickup trucks. But with the larger quantity of material, we need to be, in my opinion, we should still weigh that so we can appropriately compensate our contractor.
Well, agreed on that. I did visit the sites, and I did see a few 6-foot logs that would have, I don't know how they actually got them into the receptacle. That's quite heavy. Sure. But I did see a few larger ones in there. Maybe we can have them hit one more shot of the chainsaw to get it where it needs to be. But I think that's a minor detail. I don't think that you're going to see too much of that large stuff, because it takes about 5 people to get it over the fence.
Sure.
So Commissioner Flesher, I'd probably be very supportive of your motion if we cut it down to 2 weeks. And I mentioned that just because, one, I'd like there to be a little bit sense of urgency to get things cleaned up quickly. And also, we have a red X out there now coming off Africa. So I think the quicker we get all this picked up, the better. And then secondly, a month, I think by then we're getting back into normal tree trimming and landscaping work, and then they're getting that for free. So, if you want to amend your motion to 2 weeks, I could support a 2-week waiver.
I initially was going to go with 2 weeks, and I just figured that might need a little extra time, but I'm happy to accommodate that request and make the motion for 2 weeks.
Okay, so we have an amended motion for 2 weeks, and I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion, commissioners? Mansha, you're okay with a 2-week waiver? And Jason, from a budgetary, we're okay with that?
Yeah, we're going to have some additional costs. Like Himanshu said, we pay our processor Atlas based on the tonnage. We're going to have to pay them more. Some of the things we've done at the convenience centers, like opening up those side areas, there's going to be some additional costs here anyway. And so that's just another piece of it. It's something we can absorb.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
We've discussed this openly before the cameras, and I trust that the local media will also be very happy to hear this. But we can put this on the website as well, and do whatever notification we possibly can do to encourage people to participate.
Yep, we'll send out press release, post it on social media.
Yeah, I have a follow-up to that as well.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mansha, yep.
Chairman, may I ask if you could maybe set a time that, say, starting 10 a.m. this morning, going forward for 2 weeks? The reason I ask is, the challenge of folks that have come in this morning or the folks that have come in last week, for us to refund fees and things like that, it would be a disaster.
Yeah, I think effective tomorrow. I think we want to do effective tomorrow.
Effective tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, so that we can implement
That's
it.
good.
All right, so we have the motion to make it effective as of October 5th. And what do you, at 7 o'clock you open?
Yes.
Okay, so October 5th, 7 a.m. And I will second that amendment. Okay, anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, what's the consensus on, Jason was asking about if we need to get we need to activate or.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Contractor,
This is
I would
just
say
strictly
we'll
on
keep
the
that separate,
tipping fee,
okay.
yeah. Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on the motion before us? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. So as far as activating the emergency pickup, I agree with Commissioner Flesher and Jason. I don't think we're quite there. Although driving around, I do see a lot of people that have piled stuff up, kind of anticipating it. So I do think we need to do some type of press release and public notice and to the media and on our website, notifying people that there will not be, bulk curbside pickup, that they need to either get it to the convenience centers or the landfills on their own. I would say that we probably will have to use our claw trucks for special circumstances, like maybe someone's disabled or something and they can't fill a truck and things like that. But I do think we need to get the word out, 'cause I think a lot of people are expecting that curbside bulk pickup, and so we just need to get the word out and do that. But I don't think we need to activate the full-blown emergency pickup. Commissioner Adams. Yeah.
Just, if we're gonna put that out there, I would also like us to work with Waste Management on what their rules are. So if you have Waste Management customers, if they are Waste Management customers, they get yard waste picked up, but we should reiterate what those size requirements and those pickup parameters are. So I think the more we can message, the more information we can give, the more clarity for the community.
And then I'd like to give out, well, I have some attaboys and some concerns, so I'll start with the attaboys. Getting the updates from Jason during the storm and post-storm, I just want to commend our Road and Bridge Division under Public Works. It looked like they were getting out there and responding to every call that came in. We had, some roads flooded, we had culverts washed out, we had, roads flooded out, things like that. And from what I saw in the responses that Jason was getting from Rich Spiraker, the Public Works Director, I think the Road and Bridge guys and gals were all over this and did a great job. So I want to commend them for doing a great job. And, I know it took me over a day and a half to clean up the mess at my house. And all these folks that were out there, working for the county didn't have the time to clean up their own messes at home. So they certainly get a good attaboy, attagirl for the job they did. Republic, they got the landfill opened up 5 hours ahead of schedule. So I want to commend them for that. And then also on the convenience centers, I don't know about all of them, but I know down at the Oslo Convenience Center, they opened up the big field there for the brush disposal, and that really speeded things up. So you didn't have to go through the whole convenience center line and get backed up there. You could just pull in, back up, dump your load, and go. And that made things very, very easy. So I want to thank Republic for their good response. And then Waste Management, they got out there starting Thursday morning, and we're working hard to get caught up on, first of all, the trash pickups that hadn't been done because of the storm. And then they came back the next day and did a lot of the brush pickup. And I know that they were picking up some of the smaller piles, and they have a 4 cubic yard limit, so they weren't tackling the big giant piles, they were getting those smaller piles. So I just know in my neighborhood and the streets I drove, I saw a lot of stuff get cleared up after Waste Management came through, so I want to thank them for the efforts they did and their employees as well. On the not so good news, I guess, is I was very concerned that given that we only had tropical force winds and what I've read is a maximum of a 66 mile per hour gust, that about 28% of the service territory for FP&L lost power. And I know they've been promoting the fact that they've been hardening things and doing this for several years. And it just seems to me that lose 28% on 66 miles per hour, I'm very concerned what will happen if we get hit by a real storm head on. How much power will we lose and how long will it be out? So I think I'd like to ask an FPL representative at some point to come back before us. And from the map, I could see it seemed very widespread. It wasn't like just one area had a big problem that accounted for it. It was spread across the entire county. So I'd just like to know from them, how did it happen and what are your plans going forward? So if we do get hit by a real storm, we don't have so many people without power. And then finally, I guess it was maybe Sunday, FPL said everybody had been restored and we're back to like blue sky outages. And that still left, I think, 100 to 150 people without power. And I don't like the term we're back to blue sky level, because blue sky is, a squirrel jumps on the transformer and it blows up, and they come out and 2 hours later your power is back. To me, that's a blue sky issue. Here we're talking about people that have been out with power since Wednesday, and now you're saying Sunday, oh, we're back to blue sky, it's no big deal. But these people have been without power for 5 days. So I think that's the other thing I'd like to ask FP&L is, when you say that we're completely restored, I want to make sure it's completely restored, and not we got 150 people that we're calling blue sky, because I don't think that's appropriate when they've been out without power for 5 days or more. So I think that's all I got for my diatribe. But I do, again, Public Works, Road and Bridge, great job. Republic Waste Management, great job. We really appreciate your efforts and the sacrifices of all your employees getting out there helping to clean up the county and not having the time to work in your own yards and all that. So thank you to all those folks. So that's all I have. Okay, anything else for Jason or? Okay, so we're good on the 2-week waiver of the tipping fee starting tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And we are good on not activating the emergency curbside bulk brush pickup.
And then just one detail on that with the extra follow through. We typically do that on public roads. There are private roads where that could be an issue. If we are to do that, we need the right of entry forms and all those types of things if the board wants us to do that.
Yeah, I think we're good just not doing it and getting the word out that the messaging, as Commissioner Adams mentioned, and all that. So,
okay.
All right. Okay, we'll move on. Now we get to Public Works and the DOT supplemental agreement. Mr. Spirica, welcome. And again, Rich, great job by your team out there. Please let them know.
Team effort, Commissioner. I've got a great team. Traffic, fueling generators for 3 days. I mean, it was just an awesome. We've got a great team. In the county, we have a great team. Parks is working with us. So I can't say enough of how it was a great team effort. Ryan and Dave up in the EOC. I mean, it was really, really good team, and we put together a great work together, and we're getting everything back to as normal as we can get right now.
Very good.
So now we'll talk about State Road 60 and 43rd. The hurricane slowed the project down. No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying. So back in April, DOT, we found a collapsed pipe for the DOT infrastructure. So DOT recognized that, and they're going to pay fully for the repair of it. So this is the supplemental agreement to pay for these $403,538 worth of repairs that had to be performed on the failed pipe under the eastbound lane of State Road 60. The drainage trunk line located on the eastbound road of State Road 60 had leaks, and this supplemental agreement is to provide compensation to the contractor to do the repair work. The new total amount of the contract is $13,575,320. FDOT is funding the full $403,538 and extending for the repair and extending the contract to June of 2023. I need to add that this project was delayed 87 days by this one impact. The agreement, the supplemental agreement also has an exhibit which is updating the existing agreement with revised financial compliance and audit language. The resolution authorizing the Board of County Commissioners to execute the supplemental agreement 3 to the County Incentive Grant Program agreement is also included. The FDOT funding for the project is going up to $6,989,429. The county's portion of the contract is staying the same at $6,585,891. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve the supplemental agreement number 3 to the SIGP agreement and the resolution, and authorize the chair to execute the document.
Thank you. Any questions of Rich?
I just have a logistical question. Are they going to replace the drain, or has it already been done?
It's already been done.
It's already been done. So they're not going to tear up the road and ish.
I don't know what DOT will do in the future. The method of repair was injection of a two-part chemical that expanded, and they hope it solved the problem.
Okay.
They are looking at $3 million to do a lining project, and they are looking at funding that in the future.
Okay.
But they didn't want to delay this project any more than they had to, so this was a method they had used in the past in the south area of District 4, and they thought that this was a good situation to be able to do that, to let us continue forward.
Okay, awesome.
But this work has been done, basically. We're not waiting for for them to then go tear up the road. They already went out there and did this
Yes,
repair.
we went ahead and we have a contingency fund. We moved the contractor forward as long as I got written authorization from DOT that they were going to do this. We moved forward. I can't have that project delayed anymore, and I'm doing everything I can to push it forward.
It's like the project that never ends, so I totally understand that. So this is just,
Yeah, if they hadn't already done it,
going on.
it'd be June of 2024 when it's done.
right, that's, I guess, why I was asking. So this is more administrative in nature. It's already been done, and now we're finalizing the paperwork part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, oh yes, that's a motion for approval.
I'll be glad to second that motion. So we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, seconded by myself. Any discussion? Anyone from the audience that wishes to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Opposed? That motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, while he's there, if he can, before he runs away on as Mr. Adams said, the project that never ends, do we see an end in sight, and what's the latest on that?
2024? No. So right now, they're getting ready to do curb in the middle. That's just what the holdup was. They're going to do the curb in the islands. Then we've got about 6 weeks of nighttime paving. We're hoping to have all the lanes running every which way before Thanksgiving. And then after that, we still got to do final paving. We got landscaping and irrigation to do, but we want to get the roadway open, and then there'll just be the other small stuff that has to be done, like landscaping, irrigation, and sodding and stuff. But we want to get the main thoroughfares and everything open for everybody before Thanksgiving, and that's our goal.
Of 22?
4, 3?
One of the years.
Oh, boy. Okay. Okay, is that good? All right. Thank you, Rich. Moving on to utility services, utility accounts receivable, bad debt follow-up, and potential foreclosure activity. Cindy and Sean, welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Commissioner O'Brien, if you won't mind, if you don't mind me taking just a minute, I just wanted to recognize all the utility workers that worked tirelessly during this storm as well.
Right. Yeah,
We kept the water flowing, both water and wastewater throughout the storm. We had a time when we were down to like 90 lift stations that were without power. During that time, we have to rodeo around and move portable generators around and keep those lift stations pumped out. So those guys really did a lot of great work during the storm. And actually, it wasn't until I think just Monday that we had the last lift station finally come back on to power. And you talk about FPL and the lack of power. I mean, that was shocking to me too, considering the magnitude of the storm, to see that we had so many lift stations and so much of this county without power. But because of that, we have a lot of utility workers that are out doing a lot of work to keep that water flowing and keep the wastewater from backing up into people's homes.
Yeah, and Sean, thank you for reminding me of that. That was my bad not to include them. But yeah, I'm sure they did a great job. And again, they sacrificed cleaning up their homes to be out there. So my bad for not recognizing that earlier, but thank you for bringing it up. And
I just wanted to take a moment because I mean they
it's my bad. I should have recognized them earlier. So, but thank you for bringing it up.
guys working 24-hour shifts to kind of keep things flowing. So I want to make sure we recognize their hard work and dedication. And certainly, I mean, Rich's crew, he helped us out on a couple of situations as well. And I I commend them for all their efforts as well. So.
Yeah,
What you need
yeah,
to
and that
do
was-
is send a lot of updates to Jason that he can forward to us, and then we'll know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and that was an oversight on my part. There are so many people working in so many different departments. You know, when I did my presentation, I should have thanked more specifically. Obviously, the utility crews were doing a great job out there, just keeping all those lift stations running. And then we have, you have other issues. We had a line break and things like that was repaired in the middle of the storm in not great conditions, and some more minor things always going on in the background. Road and Bridge, our fire rescue folks, I think I didn't mention them specifically, but obviously they're going out there. Some of those power outages are lines down, and the fire crews have to go out there, and they have transformer fires and all that stuff. Our facilities management folks, our parks employees, employees that we have just answering the customer, the citizen line. So really a lot going on in the background. So I apologize. I did not do a thorough thanking of everybody in the county, and I'm sure I've still missed folks. Animal control. They've got to go wrangle the animals at the pet-friendly shelters, and it's just a lot of work going on there. And in one of my previous presentations after a storm, and somebody gave me a hard time about sounding like I was doing a NASCAR speech, thanking all the sponsors and everything at the end of it. But really, there are so many people at the county that really work to get us through this, and they're working behind the scenes, and it's thankless work, and it is important for us to thank them for that. So thank you for that reminder, Sean.
Thank you. And before I turn it over to Cindy, I just wanted to thank Cindy for a lot of the work that she's been doing on this debt, and the work that she's put forth. I know her and her team have been really busy, and they've been working with a lot of individuals to try to work through these issues. So I really appreciate all the work that she's done to do this effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy at this point.
Thank you, and of course you're welcome, and our customers are welcome. I do quickly want to reiterate what Sean said. I won't go into it a long time, but I've been working with utilities for over 19 years now. This is going to be my last storm season with our crews as an employee of the county. But it's an honor to work with those folks. They are going behind the scenes 24/7. We have our own little EOC command center over at our operations center, and we did have folks that worked as many as 36 hours straight to keep things running, keep those lift stations flowing. People are home during the storm. They don't realize what it takes to keep the water flowing and the wastewater pumped to our stations and processed. And a lot of times they're bored at home, so they're doing laundry and they're doing a lot of extra cleaning and things, which impacts that system. So I just want to thank our dedicated guys and girls that we work with in utilities. It's been a great team. It's been an honor to work with those folks for the past 19 years, and I'm sure they'll continue to keep up their dedicated service to the community.
Very good, Cindy. Thank you.
So on to a not so fun topic necessarily, but utilities, accounts receivable, and bad debt. This has been a long process, several years in the making. Some of the debt that we dealt with was over 20 years old. I think we've had more success stories than not, and we're getting down to the very unpleasant and the tail end of this process, which ultimately could mean foreclosure. But hopefully that won't be the case. I continue to work with our customers that are at the end of the line, so to speak, and we're still trying to resolve what remains of these last accounts. We started with over 400 accounts in this project about 4 years ago as far as letters going out, certified letters and notification. Most recently, I'm down to 67 accounts that received letters of notice of foreclosure, and we're still working with all of those. So just want to remind everybody, it's been a long process. I'm going to recap very briefly. Okay. If I can make the technology work, I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, Kim, which button?
Mash 'em. Hit it real hard. Yeah.
Kim, you may have to advance them.
Okay, it's not a very long presentation. So, so this was just a summary of where we ended up. a year ago, March, we updated county code, and we wrote in some concessions so that we could work with our customers to give them incentives to pay off their old debt. We removed a lot of late fees and penalties using these new sections of code, and we were able to get a lot of participation. So, next screen. This is a summary of last year's write-offs. These were the most significant write-offs and waivers, but as you can see, 107 folks participated. Those are folks that paid within the 90-day window that we had offered, and that was the window where you were eligible to write off up to 100% of your late fees and penalties. So we took you back to your original service availability or principal impact fee loan, or in the cases of assessments, we did that a little differently. We didn't want to give folks that waited 20 years to pay an assessment instead of paying in their 10-year. We didn't want to give them a better deal than the folks that did the 10-year the way we had done the amort schedule. So we took them back to what they would have paid if they had paid on time during that 10-year assessment fee. So just so no one misunderstands that because they waited 20 years, they got a better deal. They did not. They got the same deal. But again, that was a big incentive to try to get folks to pay these old accounts that had been sitting on our books, in some cases over 20 years. And next screen. So then the next set of parameters that was set up in that code change was to give folks that couldn't make that 90-day window commitment a year. So we made 27 payment agreements with folks to pay off over a year. They got a little less incentive. Instead of 100% of the fees and penalties being waived, we waived 90%. But then they were able to make monthly payments. We had some pretty good success stories in that small group as well. 9 of those people out of the 27 that made a payment agreements ended up getting it done in the 90 days and ended up with the 100% waivers. So they did better than they expected they could, and they got an even better discount, and we got that cleaned up, and now we have people that are paying on time and keeping those accounts up to date. 15 of those folks did settle within their 1-year time frame, and we do have 3 folks that haven't quite made it. We're not going anywhere near pursuing foreclosure with those. We're continuing to work with those 3 folks. They're struggling a little bit, and for some folks, this was a struggle. This was quite a struggle. And the reason they got in the situation they did because they simply couldn't always afford their monthly water bill. We work with folks that sometimes make a choice between buying a loaf of bread and paying a water bill. Mm-hmm. And those are the stories that the people on the front end in our department see, and people behind the scenes don't necessarily see. So these folks struggled. They made a great effort. They got real close. They're not quite there. So we got 3 folks left that we're still working with. I'm very confident that here within a few months, they're going to be 100% caught up. So again, some more success stories. We waived over $122,000 that'll hit this fiscal year that we're just wrapping up as of September 30, and write-offs. And again, moving forward, those folks are keeping their accounts current and staying on top of things, which is a great achievement in itself. Next screen. Oh, next. Yep, I'm sorry. Oops, I think we missed.
Went too far.
I think we missed one. Go back one.
I think go back 2.
There we are. So even though some folks who had debts that were over 20 years old did settle with us during those write-off periods, we did have to write off 83 accounts. I think in some of these cases, the folks are actually deceased and the estates have never been settled. And then there's some folks that just, I call it pick the box, none of the above, and didn't settle. Unfortunately, they'll pay later, and I'll talk about that briefly in a second. But so there were 83 debts that will be written off to the tune of a little over $480,000 that were over 20 years old, because liens that are over 20 years old are no longer legally enforceable. But unfortunately for those folks, that doesn't mean they got off scot-free. In those cases, we have filed with the clerk's records, and so when these properties change hands, these will come up in property searches. We call it a notice of potential future connection charges. So for folks who no longer didn't end up paying an assessment, and other people in their neighborhood have that service, and those folks are off scot-free, well, ultimately, before that property will be able to connect to our system, they're going to be paying whatever the connection charges are in effect at that time they decide to connect. So it's very important in utilities, being an enterprise fund where all of our customers make concessions when somebody else doesn't pay their bill effectively, that we have a level playing field so nobody really gets off scot-free in the long run. Everybody's going to pay their fair share of their connection charges. So those potential future connection charges notices on these 83 accounts have already been filed. And ultimately, when someone wants to make those viable properties, build homes on them, whatever, or reconnect to the system if they're currently abandoned, then they'll have to pay to reconnect to our system.
So Cindy, or maybe a question for Dylan, will those then show up in the title search, or will they be included on a closing statement so that the buyer can either negotiate with the seller to cover that cost, or at least they're well aware that they'll have that additional cost, and we won't get the call that, oh, well, I bought this, nobody told me I had to pay $4,000 to hook up. So just, will these notices be included in the title search or the closing statement so the buyer is well aware? And Dylan, I guess.
Yes, and that's actually the whole point of this. Oftentimes, utilities will receive a phone call. For instance, probably someone buys a vacant piece of property and they have no idea that there are maybe outstanding fees or fines because they haven't paid a reserve account. So the concept here and then we get grief from, well, why didn't this property owner know? That's where this whole concept comes in, Commissioner. The concept is we will record that, it'll be in their chain of title, and so that when somebody goes to buy that property, they'll know, oh, I better check with utilities about what I may owe in terms of these fees or charges.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry.
That was the exact purpose of that. The other common call comes from folks that buy these properties on tax deed sales and don't bother to check the clerk's records first. And you've probably heard some of those calls yourself. They come in fairly
Yeah,
often.
and those I'm not too worried about because, yeah, they didn't do their due diligence.
Right.
They thought they were getting a
Right.
deal, and then they have to.
But, we try to get communication out there in one form or another, and ultimately the clerk's records is the best source of information for anybody buying property if they want to make sure they're covering all their bases and not getting any surprises. So, Kim, next slide, please. So the last category is, where we're at today. This is probably the most difficult part of this process, but again, it's working. I mean, in some cases, it took a third certified letter that said, this is your 60-day notice to get in touch with utilities because we have you on a list to foreclose on your property. So I got to say, unfortunately, it took that letter to get their attention, but it did get a lot of attention. I've had a lot of phone calls over this. We've already made 6 settlements out of those 67 letters, and those letters just have gone out in the past 3 weeks. So I think 6 in 3 weeks is a pretty good record there. So we've settled some more. I do have some folks that have also called that have meetings scheduled with me over the next few weeks, so I'm sure there's going to be more settlements coming. And we'll continue to try to work on these. Eventually, we'll either be working with our attorney, or I think at this point it's probably going to be some outside counsel that we've already consulted with once on some foreclosures. But again, there will be notices and still opportunities right down to the wire for these folks to settle with us. And ultimately, that's our goal. We would like to get settled. We don't want to take anybody's property. We want to make that another viable property for a future connection. So we'll keep working diligently.
Yeah, and Cindy, I think that's, well, my opinion is I think that's how the board feels too. I see this more as a carrot and stick thing, that we offer the waiver of interest and fees as the carrot, and then if they don't want to do that, then we have the threat of foreclosure as a stick. But it certainly isn't my intention that we want to be taking people's homes, and that would be the extremely last resort. So yeah, please keep working with them and continuing to follow that policy.
Thank you, and I certainly will. And I have staff that works with me on this, and we do try to encourage at every point. where we can get a hold of people via phone, we're also making a lot of phone calls. So there's a lot of work on the back end to continue to try to encourage these people not to get whipped by that stick, to take the carrot instead. So, skipping my own. Okay, Kim, you want to go to the summary? So, this is the summary of the bad debt and the penalties and interest we've waived for this current fiscal year that's just closing up as of September 30th. So we collected $157,000 in change in cash, and we've written off over $632,000 in penalties and interest. And then, of course, this will continue on in the new year with the ones with the foreclosures. In addition to that, right now we're estimating $100,000 for outside counsel. I think that's going to be a pretty high and generous estimate because I don't think we're going to get to that point or have to get to that point on the majority of those 67 accounts. So, a couple things. One is, I'm sorry. Thank you. My coach over here keeping me on track. So we do have some board action requested today. That is to authorize staff to reclassify the $632,604.80 in penalties and interest as waivers and reclass that as bad debt expense. And then to authorize the Director of Management and Budget to process a budget amendment from the utility operating fund balance to cover the $632,604.80. Authorize staff to work with the county attorney's office to process any potential foreclosures, as well as authorize staff to work with outside counsel if needed in assisting with those foreclosures. Then, kind of on a little more positive note, so we don't get ourselves in this situation again moving forward. And these have already been going on throughout this process. For folks that weren't in the original 400 and something group, we didn't wait 20 years to notify them. Part of that new code that was adopted a year ago, March, set forth some new ordinances. And so now we send those notices of foreclosure. And keep in mind, this is after all of the regular utility collection efforts. This isn't all of a sudden you get a notice of foreclosure. Our folks get a bill every month. They get a phone call, an automated phone call every month. When time allows, we have 2 full-time collections representatives and then some other staff that helps part-time make phone calls. So there's a lot of effort before we even get to these letters. But ultimately, if it's a water and sewer account, once you're 24 months past due, we're going to send out that certified letter with the foreclosure notice. If you have an assessment or an impact fee loan account, we're going to give it 48 months. But again, we're going to send out that notice. But what this does, I worked with folks on this project that owed us $60 some odd thousand, $80 some odd thousand, $30,000, these outrageous numbers. These new rules, now I'm working with folks that owe us $900, $1,200, maybe $2,000 if it's an assessment. But when you're working with somebody who's struggling to make payments or picked the box none of the above and didn't make payments, it's a lot easier to conquer $900 and $1,200 and $2,000 than $80,000, right? So the county, the utility will write off less waivers under these new rules, and our customers will be better off because we won't let them get that far over their head in debt before we do something to help them overcome it. So,
And Cindy, on that, are you all good with the 24 and 48 months, or would 12 and 24 work better? Or do you want to give this a little bit more time and see how it goes?
I mean, this is working, and because we have those other collection efforts regularly, you know, we're not necessarily, the foreclosure letter doesn't go out to the 24 months, but it's not like we're picking the box none of the above in the utility department. We are in constant communication with these folks anytime we have a good mailing address or a good phone number. You know, if we can track you down, we're going to track you down and try to encourage this way before you get to that point. So I think it works okay. 12, sometimes with the turnover of properties, and sometimes what we see is properties are up for sale, and so the owner, just because they have the water and sewer service shut off temporarily, they just stop paying the bill, and then it gets cleaned up in the closing. So I think 12 would be a little too aggressive. I think 24 is pretty practical when you're talking about a water and sewer bill.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes.
So we can always come in front of you again and ask to shorten that if it doesn't seem to be working. But like I said, what I've seen on the accounts that have turned over into this during this time period, I think it's working very well. And some of these folks, once they hear me on the other side of the phone saying, you know, if you don't clean this up pretty soon, I'm going to be sending you a notice of foreclosure, all of a sudden we're working out a payment agreement. So it seems to be working.
Okay, very good.
Cindy, I'm kind of agree with Mr. Chairman, with Chairman O'Brien on this a little bit, but why the 48 on the loan and assessment account? What's the why the 2 more years on that?
Cindy, I think I can jump in a little bit on this. I think some of that stuff had to tie to statute of limitation issues, is that we wanted to make sure that we were moving forward with foreclosure before the statute of limitations was hitting us. So we were trying to make sure that we were staying on, just not losing our rights, and this was just kind of an internal trigger for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to question why the 48, why it's different, so much different.
You know, we could have adopted, and if the board so desires, we certainly could come with the notices to do so through, I believe we have to do that through a public hearing if we adopt an amendment at this time, but we could make them both 24 months. The impact fee loans, the customers do get a monthly bill. So, you know, they have 48 monthly bills that they've ignored under the rule we have now. But with the assessments, they get an annual bill. So this would be 4 missed bills instead of 2. We can speed it up. I mean,
Yeah, just what I would watch then, Cindy, is I like the fact where you said instead of dealing with 80,000, we're dealing with 1,000. So if the 48 months is leading up to too big of a outstanding thing, then I think we should look at to go to 24 months. But you know, I'm willing to let you all work it with the 48, and I think just keep in mind, let's make sure that bill doesn't get too big so it's not manageable. And if we're seeing that after 4 years, then maybe we should go to 2 years.
We'll look at that. I can tell you with the newer assessments that we have out there right now, I can only think of, out of probably 500 to 600 customers, I have 3 that ended up in this 48-month category. One of them has already caught up, and 2 of them are working on catching up. So.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any other questions for?
Any questions of the staff? Okay. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams for staff recommendation. I will say that Commissioner Flesher, myself, and Commissioner Adams, I think, dealt with this issue a few years back, and I'm glad that we've taken this course to try to get it cleaned up and prevent it from getting so far out of hand. So I'm very glad to see it's kind of working, and thanks for all your hard work for helping these folks and getting what we can and moving forward. So
You're welcome, and I thank the utility staff because like I said, we have some folks that work with collections with me directly and make a lot of phone calls and help. But I think it's been a good process. I'm happy. When I came here, there were an awful lot of accounts that already at that point were 20 years old that we've cleaned up. But I see the light at the end of the tunnel because of that change in county code. For me, that's successful in itself because we're not getting folks over their heads again. That was, you know, unfortunately, prior to us updating this, nobody wanted to even announce that we could potentially foreclose, even though that was in your county code. Right. And now we just make our customers more aware. But we kind of dragged our feet back then too, and we're not doing that anymore, and we're on top of things. So I think it's
and we started doing this with code enforcement cases as well. So I think that's a good move too. So, all right, we have a motion. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on the motion? Seeing none, so we have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you both very much. We're going to take a short 10-minute break. We will be back here at 10:40.
Yeah. summer job. I'm still shirking the responsibility.
Tell you what, the mornings have been beautiful. So Susan. That's his food.
Do you have those tangerine wings?
There, sir. Fix your collar first.
Thanks.
Got a check upstairs for you to sign.
I'll go now.
I'm gonna
Into county attorney matters. The first item is website publication of legal notices. Mr. Reingold.
Thank you very much. During the last legislative session, the Florida legislature made some significant changes with respect to posting of notices for public hearings. And these changes go into effect on January 1st, 2023. In my memo, I've outlined the various technical changes that have happened in the state, in the statute. Key points are that some notices that previously were required to be published in a newspaper can now be actually published instead on the county website. However, I do believe that this does not cover all notices. In my opinion, if there's a specific statutory requirement for a newspaper notice, that requirement still stands. So for instance, in section 125.66 subsection 4 of Florida statutes, it specifically says in cases in which the proposed ordinance or resolution changes the actual list of permitted or conditional or prohibited uses in a zoning category, there are certain public notice requirements. And the statute goes on to say, if published in a printed edition of a newspaper, the required advertisement shall be no less than 2 columns wide by 10 inches long, and other sort of format issues. And then the alternative to that is actually sending out a mailed notice to everybody. In my opinion, reading that, the new statutory requirements that allow for website notification would not overcome those very specific sections that say, this is how you run it in a newspaper. So it's not going to solve all of the noticing requirement issues. Now, additionally, under the statute, other governmental entities, such as the school district and our municipalities, such as I see folks from the town of Indian River Shores here today, would then be able to use the county website if the cost of printing on the website is cheaper than the cost of publishing it in the newspaper. Thus, under that theory, I believe, and I've confirmed with other folks, we believe that this county could charge school board, municipalities, other entities for actually utilizing our website as their notification form. There is another issue under the statute if a county has less than 160,000 people, which I believe Indian River County would be based upon the last census. The board would need to make a determination there is sufficient broadband service for our citizens, thus having proper notice being able to be available to our constituents if the board decided to go down this path. So I wanted to come to the board today simply to get guidance on how the board wanted to proceed with website notifications. Like I said at the beginning, it's just the statute just came into effect. We've got until January 1st. We were looking at both county attorney's office, IT, other departments. We're just trying to make sure we got some guidance from the board as to what direction the board wanted to go before we started making any significant changes. Please note, we also already post notices of many of our public hearings on our website. They don't meet the statutory requirements, but we do actually use that as a form of communication with our constituents. And then there's simply the issue of having other jurisdictions use our website. If they use our website for their hearings, if there are challenges to ordinances or anything that happens, does the county get dragged into any other lawsuits or litigation or disputes that get maybe brought due to those issues? So simply, and then we would need to determine if the board wanted to go down this path of what would be the appropriate cost for another entity to use our website. It would sound like it, to some people, maybe that's free, but there is a cost to us having a process for having proofs of publication, us for retention schedule issues, retaining their documents, and and other sort of technical issues that we would believe that would need to be addressed as part of any sort of fee that got charged. These are just some of the bigger overarching issues. Just kind of wanted to put on the table for the board to be able to know about, and then just ask me questions as to the notice issues and requirements, and then just seek guidance from the board today. Is this something the board's interested in doing? Is it something we want to research? My thought was, if the board wanted to go forward with this, maybe we hold back for a couple months, not go forward full bore on January 1st, see how it's working in other jurisdictions and other parts of the state, and then kind of come forward with an ultimate solution. With that, I simply just turn it back over to the chair for discussion on the issue.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dylan? Commissioner Adams? Your microphone. Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. So if we were to utilize this, we would no longer be using newspaper publication.
For the, in my opinion, for the items that do not specifically require newspaper publication. So for instance, the changes to the list of uses in a zoning district, I still believe we would have to, but there are other ordinances that don't have that requirements, and our website would be able to meet those requirements.
And then my understanding is we would or could possibly act as the repository for other jurisdictions' postings as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, under the statute, it basically says that a municipality or other entity can post on the county website. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was kind of surprised that the city wouldn't just be able to utilize their own website, but the legislature decided that the county would then be this sort of overarching website that would be used.
So then they wouldn't post on theirs, they would just post on ours.
They could certainly post on theirs for their own helping to inform their own citizens, but in terms of meeting the statutory requirements,
They would have
posting
to
on
post on
ours would be the way that they would use it. I think they would still have to do this sort of determination as to whether they have significant broadband service to support that being utilized for their community.
Since we just did the broadband study and survey, does that count towards being able to determine if we have sufficient broadband?
There is a definition under the statute of sufficient broadband service. It would just have to meet that level that it is required under the statute, and then we would be able to check the box that, yeah, that meets it. But I haven't done the study as to whether our broadband study demonstrates whether we do or don't meet it.
And then this would ultimately, or it should ultimately, result in some type of cost savings to us. Do you have a general idea of what that might be?
I do not. We could certainly study that and try to understand. One of the things, if the board was interested in moving forward with this, one of the things I was going to do is kind of just go back through, how many public hearings have we had over the last year or two? And then how many of those would still require the public notice in the newspaper, and how many of those would be able to take advantage of the website? And then from there, how much did we pay for putting it on in the newspaper? And that would give us a good estimate of what the cost savings would be.
And then I guess my last question is, if the county website serves as the repository for everybody's information, does that mean if we decide not to move forward with it, then they don't have the option to do it? Or could Indian River Shores is here, so I'll use them as an example. Indian River Shores decide that they want to publish their information this way, and they have to use our website, but we haven't decided to do that, but they do, and then we're required to do that?
The way I read the statute, and I bounced this off some colleagues, and so far folks agree with me, is that it is not a mandate for us to have the municipalities use our website.
Okay.
So that if the board were to say, look, we just don't feel it's appropriate to use a website for this, we'd rather use the statutory newspaper thing, the Shores couldn't then come to us and bind us for using our website. I think the appropriate thing for the board would be is if the board chose to use our website for us to use, that there would be a good policy decision to make is, hey, do we want to make it available to the others as well?
Okay, well, for me, I don't have a problem with using the website. I think that that's pretty much what most people do anyway. They Google something to try to find it. I personally don't believe anybody reads the notices in the newspaper, to be honest.
Unless their name is on
I
it.
don't even think most of the people in our community access the newspaper in print, much less search legal notices through the app or whatnot. Except maybe Commissioner Flesher. So I think that this is probably something that we need to look into. I don't think it's a bad thing. It might save us some money. And we're trying to set up our website right now to deliver more information to the public anyway. This would be a good way to do that. The only thing I would mention is if we do decide to move forward with it, and the cities or other jurisdictions, whether it's, I guess, water control districts could use it too or whatnot, that we have some kind of policy about when they need to submit that information to us in a timely fashion for it to be uploaded. So if it needs to be there, if it needs to start being posted by Wednesday, they certainly can't send it to us at 5 o'clock on Tuesday and expect it to be there. And I don't want us to be in a position where somebody can say, well, you messed up my advertising and now I can't have my public hearing because you didn't get it up timely. So I think we should just consider, at least maybe they need to get it to us 24 hours or 48 hours before they need it posted, kind of thing of something.
And that's something we've got to research. It's certainly something I've got a concern about. Newspapers have been doing proofs of publication and notification filing deadlines for years and years and years. It's just something we don't do. And all of a sudden, if we do the website, all of those requirements now fall on us. And so we just need to come up with a process, like you said. If you're going to submit it if it needs to be run on our website by a certain date, then you need to give it to us X amount of days ahead of time. And there'll be a learning process for us in terms of how to do all these things that, like I said, newspapers have just been naturally doing for years.
And that's my concern is, I think if we do this for ourselves, that's one thing. We know our flows and our rhythms and when our meetings happen, and we're already in the business of placing our ads with the paper, and we could replace that with doing that for our own items on our website. Of course, there's the proof of publication, all that stuff, so we would be getting into a little bit of a new business. I do worry about making sure that we're able to coordinate that with all of the municipalities that may want to do that, or other governmental agencies, because they have different schedules, and we would need to have, as there is a lead time to get something posted with the paper, there would need to be a significant lead time. I think we need to charge for our costs associated with this as well for anybody else that would be placing.
Yeah, it would take staff time to have that uploaded and formatted and all that stuff too, so.
And my nightmare scenario is some municipality can't have their public hearing on X date because the county didn't get something posted on time. That's
That is my nightmare
something
scenario.
we want to guard against, that being the situation.
So Dylan, what if we go over 160,000? How does that change things?
Then I don't think that requirement's applicable to us. I think we're okay to move forward with what happens is if you're under the 160, you have to have another special public hearing as to whether you're going to use your website or not.
Okay.
So I think that requirement then is no longer there. And to Commissioner Adams and to Mr. Brown's point, certainly another concept that we may bring back to the board is, hey, why don't we run it for, if the board wanted to go forward with it, is maybe we run it for the county for a little while, just see how we're doing with our process, how we're doing with our proofs of publication and our deadlines. And then after a while, once we feel like we've got our system moving well, then open it up for others, as opposed to having, the town of Indian River Shores or the city of Vero Beach or the like be the test run, and then we miss a deadline or something, and then we've got a city council that it's upset that their hearing didn't happen.
And I think if we go forward and utilize it, that I'd like maybe continue with the newspaper for a period of time, just to make sure things go smoothly. And I agree on the municipalities or other districts that I think we should have at least a 24-hour window before the deadline. So if it's like a public hearing that needs 10 days, we need it 11 days. If it's a 48-hour emergency meeting notice, we need it at 72 hours or something like that.
Oh, and that's much like what our newspapers do. I mean, we've got a notice that's needs to run in a paper on a Friday. We've got to get it to them on Tuesday, to make sure that we're doing it. I'm assuming we're going to have in those built-in lead times.
Yeah, those lead times are already well over 24 hours to get it in the newspaper. We can't call the newspaper and say we need an ad in the paper tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's usually 72 hours for them.
So at this point, Dylan, are you looking for just the board to tell you to go ahead and move forward to research this a little bit? Maybe come up with what the potential cost savings are, a suggested fee if we do let the municipalities use it, and come up with some of the other things we talked about, like the time window, and then come back to us for a final action?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we'd be happy to. I just didn't want to run around and start doing a bunch of research and find out from the board, hey, we're wed to continuing to use the newspaper, and then we wasted a bunch of time. But I'm happy if the board wants us to research the what I heard was cost savings, potential fee, just using the website, and I'm happy to move forward with continued work with IT and the other departments on those issues.
Okay. Commissioner Fletcher?
Mr. Chairman, well agreed. Councilor, thank you for bringing this up. Again, I believe Commissioner O'Brien and I can recall a time where you stepped out of the house and you saw a newspaper at the edge of every driveway at 5:30 a.m. It's just not the case now. The modality has changed, and I agree it's time to look at this. I'd like to see feasibility, sustainability, and accountability looked into it before we burden staff with ensuring that this is done in a timely fashion with the 10-day notice and all of that. Many people have relied upon T.C. Palm as opposed to waiting for that newspaper to be at the edge of their driveway. But we must consider that there are those who still do not have adequate internet service, or do not have internet service, or choose not to have internet service. So I just want that to be taken into consideration. I'm excited to know that we can do it at the county seat level, and as we move forward, if we can incorporate the municipalities, the school board in that system, and yes, there is a charge for service for maintenance and for input. I'm sure that can be sorted out, but that most certainly is to be taken into consideration. So I'm very excited to direct staff to keep on moving and exploring the opportunity and bringing back the item.
You know, Commissioner, if you drive around on a Saturday morning, you won't see a newspaper on any driveway because they don't deliver on Saturdays now.
But,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, and there was a time where there was one at every driveway, and then you had those bags
we get the paper, but they don't deliver on Saturday.
and then you had the bags to use for other services if you happen to have a pet.
Vice Chair
Or the whole
Erwin, any
paper.
comments, or you good with everything?
I think this is a good idea. I think all the questions have been asked, or some of the research and come back with us on it would
Yes.
definitely be that. But, I mean, that's what it's for. And if, I guess the cities have the option to use the website, they don't have to, because it says may. So, I mean, that's entirely up to them. But, yeah, I think we take some of the suggestions you got here, trial runs, charging fees and stuff has been said, deadlines and stuff like that, which you would need. But I think eventually we could do it, so, yeah.
Commissioner Moss, any comments?
I get the paper, as do you, and it's been quite a while since we've had a Saturday paper. So, yeah, it's definitely moving in another direction. Thank you for bringing this to us. I think it's the right time, too, because we're redoing the website. So it's not like we've totally redone it and now we have to incorporate this. The timing seems very propitious.
And I think there are a couple folks from Indian River Shores who actually want to talk.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Atwater, would you like to come up?
Oh, I didn't know they actually were here for that. I was just using.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for record Bob Alder, council member of town of Indian River Shores. I had a series of comments, and Commissioner Adams brought up a lot of them, so I won't waste your time and repeat them. I kind of looked at this initially as a way to save money for my taxes. And then I thought more about it, and it's really a transparency issue. And some of the items were brought up. I still look at the print edition of the paper. I get it on the web. And the reality is, it is really hard to find those legal notices, budget notices, and things like that. It is very difficult. And frankly, I looked up this morning what the cost of that newspaper is on page 2 in the lower left-hand corner of the Press Journal. To get the full subscription delivered to your driveway plus the print edition, it's $803.40. That's a lot of money for anybody. So, I started thinking about, is there a way to take advantage of this House bill that was passed? And what I see as the advantage of is, you think about it, the newspaper, you basically have a one-shot deal, a budget hearing that you folks put up with your budget listed and so forth. With a database, it sits there for a while, whatever the requirements are, how long you have to keep it. And what I would envision is that your webmaster would say, okay, Indian River Shores, send us your budget hearing format which is the way we do it with the newspaper. I checked with the deputy town manager. Newspaper doesn't do anything except sizes it in the space. And I wouldn't ask you guys to do anything more than that. But the webmaster could say, okay, the Shores, give us some keywords that you want us to put in there so if there's a search. It might be budget, 2022 to 23 fiscal year, and so forth. So I think it makes it a heck of a lot easier going forward for a citizen if they want to go back and look at something over time to be able to do it rather than have the one-shot situation you're dealing with here. The 160,000 population minimum was brought up. I was at the Florida League of Cities annual meeting down in Hollywood Beach, and this bill was discussed. And I asked the question, what is that 160,000 number? Where does that come from? Is that based on the census in 2010? Now, this is just one other lawyer's opinion that did look at it, so I'm sure he's not as good as Dylan is. But they said that was unclear in there. Now, as I think everybody knows here, the Census Bureau updates every year or two the county population, so you may not even have to do that hearing. So that might be something to think about as well. So just thank you for allowing me to.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to this? Okay. Dylan, do you need a formal motion, or have you heard enough positive feedback to have your orders?
I'm fine with the consensus that I've heard. Just basically research the cost of services, cost savings, research potential fees, how we would set that up, and just research how we would use our website and set up the process. Okay. And if I've missed any points, please let me know.
Nope. I'm good with that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next item under county attorney matters is donation of county property to the Florida Department of Transportation for right-of-way for the Oslo Road I-95 interchange. Mr. DeBraw, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Bill DeBraw on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. Florida Department of Agriculture, Florida Department of Transportation is going forward with the proposed Oslo I-95 interchange. They are currently filing over a dozen lawsuits in eminent domain to acquire the necessary right-of-way. The orders of take have been entered into by the parties, and the last parcels of right-of-way, I believe, are these donations that they are asking the county to make. Construction on the $86 million project is slated to begin next summer, and our role has been support and information, and we do not have a financial obligation in the matter. So there are 6 parcels that the DOT would like to acquire from us. If you take a look at your monitors, we can go over them real quickly. The fee parcels, the first one is in green at the top left. That's parcel 100. That's 0.15 acres that is needed. The next one is the big blue parcel. That's Oslo Road. It will encompass 6.65 acres of right-of-way and a 60-foot wide strip that goes there. The next parcel is the parcel 116. It's a 3-acre parcel that is highlighted in yellow. The 3 smaller parcels that appear, you've got parcel number 802, that is in light gray at the top left area of the screen. It's kind of difficult to see, but there are 2 parcels, one above the red parcel and another one below the red parcel, very small, 0.095 acres in size. Parcel 809 is in dark gray at the far right-hand side of the screen, again very small, 0.034 acres. That would be a drainage easement. And finally, parcel 813 is also an access easement that's shown in red, and that is 1.49 acres. There are 3 documents that they're asking us to sign. One, of course, is the resolution that declares that we don't need the property for anything aside from the road building, of course. The other document is the consent to donate, advising you that you have the right to an attorney, the right to hire experts, et cetera. And I know I know Commissioner O'Brien would be very anxious to hire some of the experts and go forward on that route.
Yeah,
but-
Bill, I think we can get like $1 million for each one of these parcels under normal right-of-way acquisition.
But keeping in with the tradition of not hiring experts and keeping the costs down, the last document, of course, would be the actual quitclaim deed. Some of these are easements, although DOT's preference is to receive a quitclaim deed where we just give all of our right, title, and interest to them, whatever it may be, for them to go ahead and construct the road project.
Are we giving them our mineral rights under the land? or-
I believe they already have them. So if there are any Murphy reservations, we are giving those up as well.
We're giving away everything, Bill.
We are just giving, and you know,
Intergovernmental cooperation, Peter.
Bill, you're going to be so happy when I'm gone, I bet.
you know, DOT probably would argue that 86 million is a fairly decent gift to us, but yet I digress. My thanks to our surveying. Reggie Inglet made this diagram for us so that we'd be able to sort all this fun stuff out this morning. Staff's recommendation is to approve the donation and authorize the chair to sign the various documents necessary.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions of Bill?
Bill,
Your motion to-
you stole my thunder. I was going to ask the exact question. This is the opposite of the O'Brien rule. Who do we need to hire? What do we need to do in order to make a profit on this? But no, that's I think that's good. I can tell you from the standpoint of attending the public workshop on this, the DOT has done a pretty good job. They answered a lot of good questions on this project from concerns for some residents that were out there. I think it was received very well, how they did this, and I think it'll be a bonus. But I was just waiting to see how the O'Brien rule would apply in opposite fashion.
So, on a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, I'll second that motion.
Does it hurt you to second that motion?
No.
There you go.
You know, I'm too tired to keep.
Notice I did that.
We've worn him down, okay.
Remember how he did that? He got that motion.
Well, you know, that would-
Anyone from the audience wishes to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0 for staff recommendation.
Thank you.
And the final county attorney matters is an update from Mr. Reingold on the Town of Indian River Shores versus City of Vero Beach federal lawsuit. Mr. Reingold.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank the board for adding this item to the agenda today. I just wanted to provide an update on the Town of Indian River Shores versus City of Vero Beach federal antitrust litigation. On August 23rd, the federal court determined that the county did not need to be a party in this suit. It has been our position all along that this is a dispute between the town and the city, and it was our goal to stay out of the litigation. On September 20th, the city council for the city reached out to me to set depositions of Jason Brown, Sean Litsky, Rich Spirica, Commissioner O'Brien. With respect to Jason Brown and Sean Litsky, we worked very quickly and efficiently to set those depositions. Those depositions will be set for October 6th, which is Thursday this week. So we will be having those depositions all day on Thursday. With respect to Rich Spirica, coordinated with outside counsel for the city, and it was determined we did not need Rich Spirica to be deposed, so that was moved off and no longer necessary. I will say, as opposed to my cooperative nature with regards to Jason Brown and Sean Litsky, I was not willing to accept service of a subpoena on behalf of Commissioner O'Brien. I believe that the deposition of an elected official is generally improper. I believe that the board speaks as a whole. It speaks through its minutes, its videos, its deposition. I mean, its minutes and resolutions, ordinances, and contracts. We are, I will say, despite my raising an objection and concern, we are working to set the deposition of Commissioner O'Brien for October 19th or 20th. The specific date hasn't been set specifically yet. But I am concerned that this deposition of an elected official is really designed as harassment. And so I just wanted to express that concern. I can say that in an attempt to prepare for the depositions of Jason Brown and Sean Litsky, on September 21st, I made a public records request to the city asking for communications between the city of Vero Beach's staff and their outside counsel that was relating to those depositions. I simply was just trying to better understand what were the nature of their questions going to be so that Jason and Sean and I could be prepared so that it would be an effective and efficient deposition. I can tell you after that point, I look out now and I recall the last board meeting we had. It was such a great community spirit. I saw Mayor Brackett in his Gator outfit. I saw City Manager Monty Falls wearing his NC State Wolfpack outfit. It was just a great coming together of the community. I assumed that was going to be continuing throughout the hurricane as this community was working together to prepare for that event and then come out from that event. But last week, as many of us were focused on our attention on Hurricane Ian, the city of Vero Beach decided that was an opportune time to email to me, asking me about the deposition dates for Commissioner O'Brien, asking to see if we could move Sean Litsky a day, and just didn't think that was the right thing on Wednesday to do. But then to further follow up with that on Thursday, counsel for the city of Vero Beach reached out to me. Just hours after, I can tell you, my neighbors and I cut up a huge tree that was blocking our street, and it sent me a subpoena for the production of the following records. Any and all communications or documents between the town and the county regarding essential water services. Any and all correspondence between the town and the county regarding the 1989 franchise agreement. Any and all documents and communications between the town and the county regarding quality, price, studies, reports, work orders, investigations, memos, or concerns about the county's ability to provide essential services. Any documents supporting the town's claim that the 1989 franchise agreement is a violation of federal antitrust laws. Any internal communications documents concerning the town's support for a decision not to renew the town's agreement for city essential services, and a slew of other requests. And I thought that was pretty burdensome and cumbersome on us, and that the city wanted those documents within 4 business days. I was not going to bother the city on my public records request during the hurricane. I thought it was better to focus on the issues that were at hand. But I did want the board to be aware that on Monday I filed my objections to this. I'll read just one of them. I think just summarizes it well. County objects to this request being overbroad and unduly burdensome. Without a time period provided, such a response would go back over 10 years when the county filed a response to the Town of Indian River Shores' procurement process for the provision of water and sewer service, which led to the award of a franchise to the city of Vero Beach, which began in 2012. Additionally, such records could include documents from the discussions that occurred roughly 10 years ago concerning the consolidation of the city and county utility services. The county would need more than 4 business days to produce such records. Finally, these records are readily available already to the city through either discovery of the town or public records requests that can be submitted to the town. I guess in the spirit of cooperation, I still went ahead. I researched this weekend, came into the office, went through my files, was trying to provide any responsive records that I felt like we had in an attempt to, again, make the depositions efficient and effective on Thursday. I think after kind of guilting the city on Friday, they finally provided me some records yesterday afternoon. I just really felt that I felt like the city's actions during the storm were just unacceptable. The city, told me they were going to have a deposition, and then they pushed me for these dates, pushed me to change dates, pushed me for documents in just an absolutely unreasonable time period. I just felt the board and the public had the right to know that the city, I really feel the city's using the discovery process in their litigation with the town as a method to harass the city and divert our attention away from more important efforts that the county is taking right now. I just thought it was important to bring that to the board's attention.
So Dylan, just make sure I got the full picture. The city had filed a motion to dismiss before the federal judge, and I think they listed 4 points that were their position why it should be dismissed, and the federal judge pretty much blew all 4 of those points out of the water. Is that correct?
So my understanding, and I will tell you, and I've said this publicly before at various meetings, I haven't tried to dive much into their litigation. That's between those two parties. My biggest key was when I came to the board and I said, I'd like to at least file some papers to make sure that we don't get inserted into that case. But it is my understanding that the judge denied the motion to dismiss, and thus their case was moving forward.
Right. So I read the judge's issue, and to me, she clearly said no, 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 no. And to use David Gunter, not just no, but hell no. So, and then subsequent to that, we get a letter from the city manager that says, hey, it was never our intent to prevent you from providing services to the town. Please, you guys go ahead and negotiate agreement, go right ahead. Is that pretty much correct?
So I will say that the city sent us a letter. The town responded. The city sent us another letter. I can tell you I'm working with Jason Brown right now to respond to that. I think our strongest belief, and this will be, I believe, come out of the letter that we are working on, is this is a dispute between the town and the city. We need you two to resolve whatever that issue is, and we feel that's the primary point by which whatever action happens occurs.
Right. But just I'm trying to make the path that they sent us that letter saying it was never our intent to prevent you, go ahead and negotiate. We give them the confetti cannon salute on the 20th, and then they start with these subpoenas to drag us into the lawsuit. Is that pretty much what the city's doing?
That's my assessment of where we're at.
I just wanted to make sure I had that all clear in my mind. Commissioners, any questions for Dylan? Okay. Thank you, Dylan. That concludes county attorney matters. Under county commission matters, my item, an off-leash dog park. Commissioners, I do own a dog, and at times we take him down to St. Lucie County, south of the nuclear plant. There is a beach park called Walton Rocks, and it is a off-leash dog park. It's used quite a bit. We've been there many times. I did discuss it with St. Lucie Commissioner Kathy Townsend and inquired if they have any problems. They have complaints, issues, and she said, no, we have no complaints whatsoever. All the times I've been there, all the dogs have played well. There's never been an issue. They don't dig up sea turtle nests. They're busy chasing things in the water and this and that. So I thought that it might be nice if we had an off-leash beach dog park in Indian River County. I thought that maybe Sea Turtle Trail or Sea Grape Trail might be a good location because they are two of our smaller beach parks and not real heavily used like some of the big ones. Obviously, these are both within the limits of the town of Indian River Shores, so if the board does decide to go forward to explore this, we would have to coordinate with the town and their rules and how that would all work. But I think, I just think it would be a good thing to have for our community, and would love to be able to take my dog to a beach park here in Indian River County instead of going down to St. Lucie. So I just put that out for any discussion to see how the board feels about it. Commissioner Adams?
Yep. So this is actually very timely that you have put this on the agenda because Ms. Kim Solomon from Roseland had contacted me a couple of months ago about the desire for her to work on an initiative for a dog-friendly off-leash beach. I think she said most of the same things that you have said when she came to meet with me. I actually thought, because I told her, she needed to talk to the other commissioners and that kind of thing, I actually thought she had actually reached out to you, and that's why you had put this on the agenda. So it's just, which was not the case. So it's an interesting coincidence. But I know there is a group in the community that would love to see this happen. I think initially their desire was for a beach closer to the North County area, maybe a larger one, but I can understand dipping our toes into something a little bit smaller and seeing how it works and going from there. So I will say from my constituents, there is definitely a need and a want for something like this. So I would be happy to support moving forward with that. And after there's input from other commissioners, if you are in need of a motion, I will be happy to make that.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Commissioner Moss?
Yes, thank you. I did call Indian River Shores the other day to get I have their resolution. It's 19-07, and this was put into effect June 27th, 2019. And their rules, and it's very short, so I can read it. It's 2 sentences. Off-leash hours. Dogs are permitted on the beach without a leash during the daily hours of sunrise to 9 a.m. And from 5 p.m. to sunset. Any unleashed dog on the beach must be supervised and under the control of its owner or other person responsible for its behavior. So Indian River Shores, it's very limited hours, as you can see. And I'm familiar with the dog park that we have in Vero Beach, which is practically on the lagoon, and unfortunately attracts people from other counties, as you can understand, because we just told that story that you're traveling to take the dog to a place where it can play on the beach. So yeah, I think we'd have to be very careful about this because there's also an environmental aspect to it. It's not just the dog plays on the beach and the dog leaves. The dog leaves behind certain residues, shall we say, that gets washed into the ocean. It all goes somewhere. And while the ocean seems like a very big place, we know it's not quite as large as it seems because we've experienced problems coming from Lake Okeechobee and then traveling, mainly travels south or stays there, but some of it has traveled north. And so we've had to deal with that on occasion, and also red tide. So they're all different factors to be considered with this. But I think for me, and I love dogs, and I think it's great that people want to play with dogs all kinds of places. But to me, if this, we really have to be careful what we do in terms of the environment. We spend so much time and so much focus, so much effort on our waterways. I think we really have to be cognizant of the effect of it. So thank you. That's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I'll just address 2 things. One, as far as the town limits, my idea of this would be our normal beach hours from sunrise to sunset or whatever that might be. I believe that the county owns the land right off the parking area onto the beach to the mean high water so that we could have our rules for that. And then seaward of that is public land under the state of Florida. Certainly, we would have to work with the town on making sure people stay within the county boundaries and not stray off into the town areas, but I think we can work on that. And then, like I said, the beach park I've been to, they have lots of the little doggy bag stations around, and the people I see there do a good job of picking up at least the number 2. Now, obviously, you can't do much, on the number 1, but, looking at that, as you mentioned, the Vero Dog Park is right next to the lagoon, and those dogs are all doing number 1 there, so it could run off in the lagoon just as easy there as anywhere. But I think we can work with the town and coordinate how we regulate, people staying on the county part of that and not straying to the shores. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, do you have
What's
a
your
preference on sea turtle trail or sea grape? Do you have a preference? Or?
No, and the thing that occurred to me, maybe for consideration, would also be Ambersand Park, because that's a fairly small one. That's totally within the county, and might alleviate any concerns the town has. But I think of the other 2, the northern one, I think, which is sea grape, I believe. I looked at both of them, and I think sea grape would just be more amenable as far as what's on either side of it, north and south. So, but I think what I would like, if the board is agreeable, to go ahead and just direct staff to look into this a little bit more and to coordinate with the town, make sure we get their input, and then come back, with a final decision of what they recommend. But right now, I'm just kind of thinking, direct staff to kind of look into this a little deeper and come back with some ideas.
Commissioner Adams, this fits into what your folks were looking at?
I think as an initial step, I think obviously coming from the North County, anything closer to 510 is ideal. I know they had, when they originally approached me, we're talking about Treasure Shores. That might be, because we haven't done this before, it's a more well-used beach, and I think Commissioner O'Brien's thought was do something smaller where there's less people, see how it works, and,
Now,
start
we'll
the program
say
that way.
from 510 and A1A, it's not that far south
Right.
to Sea Grape Trail. It might be a mile and a half, so it's not a tremendous distance. So I think you all would work for you, at least.
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to start, and like I said, there's already kind of a community movement to try to do something like this, so I think it's very timely, and I would be happy to make the motion for Commissioner O'Brien to ask staff to look into it and to work with the Shores on how it might work.
I would agree. I think it's a great idea. But
Is that a
go ahead.
second?
You second it if you would like.
You can go ahead, that's fine.
It's your thing.
All right, I'll second it. For the record. Mr. Harper, would you like to comment at this time, or just wait and work with staff? What your pleasure, sir. I'll defer. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Do you want any comments or anything? No? Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Fletcher.
I just wanted to say that, once again, I know you're a very responsible, respectable pet owner. You ride around with a cage in the back of your truck, and I know you go touring, and I do the same. Our dogs are sizable. I think mine is quite large, and I just see some responsiveness when we're walking about with the dog. He is on a leash. He'll never be off a leash. That's just my feeling on what needs to be done. I know when I go into a store and there's people with large dogs, I see certain reactions as well. And I understand to earmark, I support taking a look at this. I don't know what the final decision will be. I just have to have concern for all the other folks who do not have a pet, who are intimidated by large dogs. I see it every day when we walk about. And I realize it's contained, but sometimes we have dog parks where there are fences so that the dogs can play and communicate and socialize, and it's a great experience. Not saying it's not, but when it comes time for the ability to wander about in a community, I do have some concerns. I also have to share the same concerns with Commissioner Moss about the remains of the visit, that sometimes people are not as conscientious, respectful, and we do get an awful lot of calls about that on Beachside, and consistent calls. So I just would like, I will support staff looking at this, but I want to see all the options and what we can do to ensure sustainability to a project of this nature, and not just say, all right, it's a want and let's just try it out and then deal with the unintended consequences. So that's all. So I do support moving forward, but I don't know what the final decision will be when it comes back, because there are some concerns that we've all heard over the years. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anyone from the audience wish to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by myself. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
That motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss opposed.
And to the
Need to put a November 15 deadline on it?
That would be
out
nice.
there either way.
I heard there was sort of three components of this. One, staff to look into it. Two, to coordinate with the town. And three, that we were looking at Sea Grape Trail.
That would be my first option, what I've looked at, but I think if the shore says, no, there's no way we want this or anything, then maybe look at Ambersand.
Okay, so then there's no specific place, it's just staff look at it and coordinate with the.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
think my first option was C grape, but I'll leave it to staff to figure out what might work best and work with the town and see what everybody can concur with. Okay. We deleted Commissioner Ehrman's items. That takes us to Commissioner Adams, the Oslo Cemetery Rules and Regulations for Burial. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you so much. As some of my fellow commissioners will recall, several years ago, we reacquired the Oslo Cemetery from private ownership, for lack of a better word. And at that time, we didn't finalize rules and regulations. We talked about doing that at a later date. At this point, we do have interest from the community in burial plots within the cemetery. As we spoke originally, our intention is not to get into the cemetery business. However, we were amenable at the original discussion to having direct descendants of people buried in that cemetery the opportunity to do that. The concept we talked about at the time was kind of a pioneer cemetery. We have some rules for the Winter Beach Cemetery that could easily kind of transfer to Oslo, but I know we do have a few new commissioners since the time we had that original discussion, so I just wanted to go ahead and make sure that it was, or get direction or permission, for lack of a better word, to work with Dylan and some of the residents who've expressed interest to come up with a fee schedule and some rules and regulations about how it would work. It is an older cemetery. We do have a list of who is buried in it. Again, all pioneer families. And we do have a map of sorts as to where people have been buried, and so there's a bit of a survey and there's some information there. Again, the goal is not to open it, or the intention is not to open it to the public in any means, but when we did acquire that, we already went ahead and gave a few spots to, I believe, the Peacock family.
It was 2 plots were promised to the folks who deeded us the cemetery.
Correct. And at the time of that discussion, you know, there was other people in the community who do have family there that were interested. I know Mr. Meadows is here. He is one of the pioneer families that has expressed interest. And that's really what's bringing this to the forefront, because he would like to go ahead and get that part of his affairs taken care of. So I would just ask your approval or direction to have Dylan and myself kind of put something together and bring it back for you guys.
Second.
Thank you.
Definitely. I think that's a beautiful
Yes.
sentiment, by the way. You're actually reuniting families, I mean, there in a beautiful place.
Thank you.
Well, you and I were there, or we were at some of these older cemeteries, are unbelievable. The Gold Star Mothers, this was, I think, about 2 years ago, did place the wreaths on the World War I veterans. And yeah, you were.
Yeah, the Fellsmere Cemetery.
They're just spectacular, these older cemeteries, and thank you, for bringing this forward.
No problem.
I think
And
it's a beautiful gesture.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that's one of the other cemeteries that we have looked at some of their rules, especially with the older part of it. But I know Mr. Meadows is here. I don't know if you would like to say anything, or if you're good. If you'd like to, you're welcome to come up to the podium.
Welcome. If we could have your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, my name is Ron Meadows. I thank the board for hearing this topic, and especially our flag bearer, Susan Adams, for carrying this topic and this flag forward for so long. I'll regress just for a moment to what Mr. Flesher said about the newspaper in every driveway. I'm responsible for some of those newspapers way back then when, I had to pedal my little bicycle all the way from 2 miles down Dixie all the way to the Press Journal's loading dock, fold up the newspapers and put them in the little saddle bags on the back, pedal all the way back past my house, and then get home before the bus got there to pick me up to bring me to school. That job did not last very long for me. It was too early in the morning and too much work for 12 cents per week per newspaper, I think is what it was. But yes, I would like to get my final affairs finished up by being able to tell my family where to bury me. We're in the process of trying to do all of those things at this point, but I want to be put in Oslo Cemetery, and I have family there. But that cemetery has been sort of like a yo-yo. It started in the private sector with an owner, and it went down, and then the county owned it, and then it went back to private again, and now the county has it again, and we still don't have the rules set forth to use it as a cemetery. And I think that's too bad, because we insisted that the last owner of it keep that cemetery open and available for burial of deceased people. And yet we took it back, and we don't have the means and regulations in order to let people be buried there. And so I certainly don't mean to open it to the public, and I don't think we will have too many people in the future asking to be buried there, simply because, you know, we get older and we get married and we want to be buried at other places. But it's important to some of us to be buried there, and I respectfully ask our commissioners to proceed with this and let Mr. Ringgold come up with the regulations and the rules in which some of us, I would like 4 plots in there myself for my immediate family to be buried there. And we just need that means available to us. We have it as a cemetery. Let's use it as a cemetery. You know, there's plenty of room there, and it's just a small 1.2 acres, but 1.2 acres will hold a lot of people, and we need to respect the people that have been put there. And they were put there with very respectful means, with traditions from their families, and now I think we should let the families be buried there by those people that they put there. So I ask you to please let Mr. Ringgold proceed with this, come up with the rules and the regulations so that the people that have folks there can join them when it comes our turn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Meadows, when I was 8 or 9, I too had a newspaper delivery route. I was growing up in Fort Lauderdale, so it was a Miami Herald, and I did the same thing. I'd ride my bike down to the grocery store where they delivered the papers. We would fold them, stuff them. Now, I had a basket instead of the saddlebag, so I filled my basket and then rode my bike and did the delivery, came home. I'd kind of fall asleep for about a half hour, then have to wake up again, you know, get ready for school. And you'd lose track what day it was. You know, you couldn't remember if you woke up to do your route or not. It was a lot of work that early in the morning for a 9-year-old, but it was good. You know, you know, you learn how to do things.
It was change in our pocket.
It absolutely was. Yep.
Well, Saturday when we collected it, we had, you know, a dime, a nickel, and 2 pennies, or whatever it might be, and but it wasn't worth it.
Mr. Meadows, I was also a fellow newspaper carrier, but it wasn't pocket change. I bought a car out of it. My first car was bought riding with that big basket and getting all that ink all over the walls and folding them up in the rainy days and in the snow as well. But I just want to say that I'm happy to support this. I just hope that you choose to utilize that real estate way up the road.
Well, thank you. That's my plan.
Okay, I know you have support there.
But,
the bride is here.
Almost 87 now, and that road, I'm a realist, that road is not too far out there, but I want to know where the end of it is. So,
Well, you know, if you tie it to the completion of State Road 60 and 43rd Avenue, you got a lot of time ahead of you.
You want to see that?
Can you imagine delivering papers in that
That's
intersection?
another whole story. It's on both sides and a bridge every mile. that
Exactly.
Could pass at one time.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did not deliver newspapers. I had to pump gas and check the oil in your car and wash your windshield. That was my first job. That and working at the ice plant, bagging ice and bottling water as a young man. I think this is a great idea. I think the pioneer spirit and the descendants being there, I think it's a great idea, and I would encourage you. I know you're familiar with the Winter Beach Cemetery. My grandparents are buried there on my mom's side of the family, and my mom's ashes were spread there along with their grandparents, and they've always done a pretty good job at the Winter Beach Cemetery maintaining that and allowing family to be buried with their former loved ones there. So yeah, I think this is a good thing.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher, to direct Commissioner Adams to work with Attorney Reingold on formulating some Oslo Cemetery rules and regulations. All in favor of the motion signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams, for carrying the ball on this. We've taken care of Emergency Services District, Solid Waste Disposal District, First Amendment, and renewal to the biosolids agreement between the Solid Waste District and the City of Vero Beach. Commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Thank you, Sean. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. That concludes our agenda. Just a reminder, you all start putting your disc golf teams together for the 15th. Registration and morning refreshments at 8, and then shotgun start at 9.
You can do that?
Susan needs a co-pilot for the cart. Let me know.
Yeah, well, if I get liability insurance, she's playing. Okay, with that, we're adjourned. She may wing somebody.
You've obviously never seen me toss.
She has no idea where her things go. It could be behind me.
Well, that's